Hello. Okay, moving on. So we're now in the slide 14, Java identifiers. So identifiers actually refers to any name that you use in your Java program, whether it's a variable, it's a class name, it's the method name. So all names that you define or create, they are all named as identifiers. So there are rules that you have to follow when you declare variables, okay, or identifiers. They may contain only letters, okay, digits from 0 to 9, the underscore character, and the dollar sign, which has and the dollar sign, which has a special meaning. So, when you create variable names, you can use this combination. Preferably, it starts with a letter and then followed by a letter or a number or an underscore. Okay, but always start with a small letter. Small, but no. Always start with the letter. Kasi pwede naman a big letter if it's a class name, no? But make it a habit to start with a letter. There are 26 letters in the alphabet. Okay, because part of the rule is that the first character must not be a digit. Pwede siya underscore, but it looks ugly when the variable names starts with an underscore. So use it only when required by the situation. Okay, and then in terms of how long can your names be, actually, pwede siya taas kayo yun, but don't make it also too long. Okay, enough to make a variable that reflects what its content, but don't make the name too long. Okay, so for Java identifiers, they cannot contain spaces, dots, asterisk, or any other character. So in your identifier names, you can only use the underscore, but any other character, dili pwede. Okay, so dili pwede yung kag 7-11, Netscape.com, utility asterisk. No, you're not allowed to use that because you're using those special characters. These characters kasi have special meaning to Java. Like example, the dot. The dot has special meaning to Java. It's a separator between the object and its members. The asterisk, it has meaning already, like it's used for multiplication. So you cannot use this variable or these characters as part of any identifier names. Okay? Identifiers can be arbitrarily long, as I mentioned. And also, this is what you have to remember. Java is case sensitive. So a capital letter is not the same as a small letter. Okay? So this name, stuff. Okay? It's the same word, same meaning, but then it's written differently. And so those three are different things for Java. Okay? Keywords or reserved words. So this is what I've mentioned, I think, in the previous these words have special meaning to Java, and so you do not use them as any of your variable name or class name. Okay? Uh, we'll be using siguro most of them. There are only very few here we will not be able to cover, like maybe synchronize. Okay. So none is same as special meaning, and this one that should be in small letter. All actually reserved words or keywords are in small letters. They are in small letters. So you will have to familiarize yourself with this. Okay. Naming conventions. Naming conventions are actually important, and you have to make sure you stick with this one. And especially in my case, I am really also very particular with you following conventions. Okay, So if you don't follow conventions, then that would be a demerit on your end. Okay? So class types begin with an uppercase letter. If you say public class, then that's the name of your program, right? The class. So it has to start with a capital letter. Primitive types begin with the lowercase letter. Variables of both class, primitive and class, begin with the lowercase letters. Okay, so all variable names always start with a small letter because it's a variable name. So that you can differentiate it. The reason why we're doing that is so that we can differentiate that this starts with a small letter, then this has to be a variable. Okay, this is starting with a capital letter. This has to represent the class. Okay, and you can also use multi-word names. Okay, like for example, kanidere, my name. So you notice that this is multi-word. Do not use the underscore. Use what you need in Java's world. The convention is if your identifier or your name is made out of more than one word, then the convention really is to just put them side by side, but the beginning of each word must be in capital letter. Okay, so like my name, so the name is another word, and so it's now capital N. Okay, my balance, so balance is another word, that's why the B there is capital instead of putting underscore because it looks messy. Okay, next. Oh my gosh, next slide. 1 minute moving. Okay, assignment statement. So I think I've explained this lengthily in the previous video. Now, assignment statement is used to assign a value to a variable. Okay, the equal sign is called the assignment operator, and we say the variable named answer is assigned a value for 2, or more simply, answer gets 42. So that's the fastest way to use to read the equal sign. Just say gets. Okay. Next slide. So the syntax, this is the general form of how you're going to write an assignment statement. You always have the variable name on the left side, then the equal sign, and then there's an expression. The expression can be any mathematical expression or just simply a value, no, constant value. Okay. So expression can be another variable like sum gets total, or a literal or constant like sum gets 0 or letter gets A, or something more complicated which combines variables and literals using operators. Sum gets sum plus total, or it can be even more complicated than that. Now, when you declare a variable, what you're doing there is you identify variable name. Now, the rule is that before you even use a variable, you should also always initialize it. Okay, give it an initial value. Okay? So a variable that has been declared but not yet given a value is said to be uninitialized. And normally uninitialized variables, okay, class, if it's a class variable, then the default value there is null. Uninitialized primitive variables may have a default. Default gani ka ng or siya o na ano na yun. It's a given, no? Kanang default. Okay? But for your case, okay, may have a default value man. There are cases where primitive types always get the default value. But in your case, kaya you're still learning, most of the time we're not yet using class unless you know that it's stopping a class. But if all our programs are inside main, the rule is you give it an initial value. Never use it without an initial value. Okay? So it's good practice to not rely on default values, but you always specify what is the appropriate initial value of a variable. So how do you initialize? So all you have to do is, actually initializing is just an assignment statement, and you give it what is the appropriate initial value. Okay. So we initialize variables to protect against or to keep the compiler happy. Always assign a value at the time the variable is declared. Make it a habit to give initial value when you declare the variable. Okay. So the syntax is type variable 1 gets expression 1, and then you can have several initialization kung parehas sila tanan of data type. Okay. So how are assignment statements evaluated? Kanina there is a right side. Okay. The expression on the right-hand side of the assignment operator is evaluated first all the time now. When the compiler sees a line like this, kanang na ay makita siya ni assignment operator, what it actually does is it will always perform the one at the right-hand side. After it performs that, it gives that value to the variable on the left-hand side. Okay? Next. Oh my gosh, moving on to simple input. Miss that.